Hi all, it's Sao-Sen here, um, just making a video on, working on, different family for our Conlangs for, yeah, for the value of blood. Um, so, be trying to figure out some, uh, rules we can pull from what we know from the map here, as to whether language, there's some things about language, and then probably work on some basic structures and the like. And yeah, I guess I'll talk you through those as they come up. Cool. Okay, so the major things that I've picked up so far looking at the map and thinking things through are that obviously for Farian, uh, that as it's originates from a desert location, they go to value water quite a lot. So water is going to have a place of import within the language. They're going to know sand quite well, and looking at the way names are placed, there's a closeness for names that are for closer places, and that's both culturally and geographically. So a mixture of the two essentially will determine how close it is for naming new places, and that will probably extend to people as well. Although, of course, more so in yes, and people. Yeah, yes, yeah. I think I'm happy with that. I'm just trying to think of word structure I'm going to use here because I don't want to go with the same formation idea I did with for Hetian. It's not. It's not that it's not a good solution. It's not that it's not a good way of doing things. It's just that it's not right for this project. So I'm going to go with a more generalized word structure that are most words will follow, I suppose. Now, obviously, this has to be quite flexible, and probably chainable. Huh. I suppose. Hmm. Okay. So obviously, if the core of a word is not the core of a word, but if the core of a um syllable, that's the word, is vowel consonant. Um, onto the vowel consonant. You can have two optional consonants beforehand, probably. No. Yes. Two optional consonants. For and then optional consonant, optional vowel, optional consonant. Find. You're only going to get double your, yeah. That's not word structure, that's syllable structure. Syllables are all going to be, every word is going to be at least 2 letters long. Doing a vowel and consonant. It's fine. It works. Obviously, there's a case being made for having everything but the vowel optional, or allowing double vowels. I don't want. Is that going to cause any problems? Is the question. No. It shouldn't. No. I think that's fine. Don't think that interferes with what I've got so far. I think that's okay. And of course, things can evolve, so it might have changed slightly between. Obviously, this is the old and if you're looking at latest names of places shift with time, and language shifts with time as well. So things might have been shortened effectively or made simpler to pronounce in certain ways. There are conflicts, we'll look to resolve them later on down the line if there are conflicts between this and known. Yeah. Not. There we go. There. Okay. So, knowing the syllable structure, that's useful. So, what are some keywords? Obviously, water, and yeah, okay. Formal word for water, quite important. I can go 2 ways. Things with import can be, long, relatively long, complex words, that you have to pay attention to, essentially, attention grabbing, or they could be short and simple, essentially, because they are, short, sweet, to the point, essentially, it's an early word, essentially. There's less need there's less words to fit it around, essentially, and it's quite important, so it makes sense for it to be short and easy to say. Which we're going to go for water here is going to inform a reasonable amount. Likely that this will form the basis of given this is likely to be a base word for a number of various positive adjectives, essentially. It should probably be something relatively short, but also long enough to have the space to Interesting. Okay. Think about it. If we're saying that place names come from proximity to something, and obviously this language essentially originated in obviously in the Farian Empire. So that is Farinith, something like that. Okay. So capital Farinith. Yes. So likely that the word for water originates or is closely linked to the name for that river that runs past it. Sense. So if that's the case, and place names are basically based on proximity to a thing, and it's right next to the river, it's probably a close word to that. Probably a little shorter. So think something like Fari. Fari? Yes, I like that. Okay. So we know Fari is water. That makes sense. Go for Farin. River. Fari. Those both fit, right? Optional consonant. Vowel. Consonant. Optional vowel. Skipping the optional consonant. And then the actual consonant on the end. Yeah, those both fit in a single. Farin. Fari. Farin. Fari. Yeah, those are both single syllable. Or at least can be pronounced single syllable. On the long end of a single syllable, but workable. Okay. So yeah, running off. Are those capitalized? Whatever, they're capitalized. I don't know if that thing is gonna pull together. So Atari make a good. If water is something of import, makes sense that word for your primary positive case that other positives can be evolved from, and obviously that's not how things always work, but essentially, if you're looking at word evolution based on proximity to, if words have evolved much like proper nouns do in the language, which kind of makes sense, they're likely to follow similar patterns, it makes sense to take the primary positive, i.e., have a basic positive from which other positives can be derived that is close to the thing that would be most sought after, essentially, which in a desert civilization is going to be water. So your words for water and your core positive are going to be closely linked, and then are going to diverge from your secondary positives are going to diverge from there, essentially. So the question is, where do negatives come from? Obviously, is the other. You need positive and you need negative, and the concepts that define them. So you're probably going to need, if water is good, essentially, obviously not directly. Is there going to be the side? Heat possibly. Heat would make some sense. Um, Heat is, you know, what what dehydrates you, obviously. Not exclusively activity does that as well, but it's a special activity in heat that is likely to dehydrate you severely. And there's only so much you can avoid doing activity. When you do, you tend to avoid doing it in the heat in hot climes, especially drier hot climes. Although, so would make sense for heat potentially to be the negative. Although at the same time, the problem that becomes, even for a desert civilization, it does get cold at night, and so that doesn't work particularly well there, where heat is suddenly a welcome respite from the cold. And of course, you want heat to cook, and cooking is important to most civilizations, because that is one of those things that somewhat key to food stability, essentially. It so it doesn't work. Okay. Drought, perhaps. Although drought is a slightly more nebulous concept than water, so possibly wouldn't possibly doesn't work in that sense. Like if you've got a very down to earth, the salt maybe. Though again, you kind of need salt actually. Salt is important and yeah, no, salt is valuable to pretty much every civilization relatively early on, from a food preservation standpoint. Actually, probably not salt. Not to mention, kind of need salt in your diet when you're at risk of dehydration. So how well an ancient civilization know that is questionable. Given salt's value from a food drying perspective, a food preservation perspective, although that matters a lot more when you've got a lot of meat in your diet, which you're unlikely to do, given that animals require a lot more water than plant crops. So you're unlikely to have many animals, but outside of beasts of burden. Just from a water security perspective. Okay. You're probably not much meat in your diet, so you might not actually value salt particularly then. Though obviously it's still valuable from a, well, depends how struck you off survival, how much you care about seasoning. Obviously from a hydration perspective it is still important, but how well would you understand that as an ancient civilization? Hmm. Would they understand the need for salt well enough to not see salt? Would they? Hmm. Difficult. Uh, hmm. Okay. Stuck in salt for a while. Okay. So salt probably isn't the right choice given the amount of thought that has to go into it. Okay. question then becomes, what is the right choice? Is the right call? Maybe it is sand some form. Like, or wind. Sand would kind of make sense. Okay, gonna go with sand. Although, yeah. Fine, yeah, specifically fine, and because what is going to get blown over crop fields and the like, most likely makes a significant chunk of sandstorms, which are bad. Generally sort of worse in all the ways people think of sand as bad. Obviously, on the beach it's nicer, but when sand isn't, when you don't want sandy, fine sand is worse because it's sandier sand, essentially. So yeah, sand. Okay. No. Anarchy. Anarchy? Anarchy. Yeah. So, Anarchy will be bad. And then our car will be rough sand. And you've got good, you've got bad, you've got water, you've got sand to find. That fulfills a lot of necessity here. In terms of what's known, which is good. At least about that. Obviously, it's not in an earthly language yet. We don't even have a sentence structure. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this is. I don't know. I've been rambling for a little bit and thinking through this. Probably a long enough video at this point. If you've got suggestions, obviously, etc., leave them down in the comments. And hopefully you enjoyed the video. Yeah. This system signing out. Hope to catch you all next week. Please do remember to like, subscribe, comment, especially if you've got any questions you want answered. Be happy to answer them either in the comments or in another video. So catch you all next week.